Hello and welcome back to the Will Talk podcast. My name is Matt Deneef. Thanks for listening. Normally this podcast is all about the ins and outs of the women's professional road racing season, but it's the off season at the moment and there's no road racing going on. So instead we're bringing you a series of special interviews with fascinating individuals within the sport. Riders, staff members and other people who we think have an interesting story to share. In this episode, we're talking to none other than the reigning Olympic time trial champion, the reigning world time trial champion, and a rider who last month retired from the sport at the very top of her game. She also happens to be the new president of the Cyclists Alliance. She is, of course, Grace Brown. In case you haven't been following Grace's story over the last few years, here's a little bit of background for you. Grace was a cross-country runner who turned to cycling due to injury in the mid to late 2010s and gradually became a force on the Australian domestic racing scene. She rode for the Wiggle High Five team in late 2018, joined Mitchelton Scott, the team now known as Livell Jayco, in 2019 for 3 seasons, before eventually joining FDJ Suez in 2022. She'd go on to spend her last 3 seasons with that French team, and it was in that time that she grew to become a rider famed for her dangerous late attacks and as a world-class time trialist. Her 2024 season, which would be her last in the pro ranks, was her best season ever. After a challenging Spring Classics period, Brown managed to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège with a gutsy ride from the early breakaway. She then went on to win gold in the time trial at the Paris Olympics by more than a minute and a half. And then in late September, she won her first world title against the clock after 2 runner-up finishes in the past couple years. With her last races now done, Grace is back in Melbourne and busy finding her feet in life after cycling. And as you'll hear, she's got plenty to keep her busy. She's got that Cyclists Alliance role, some speaking gigs, and a whole lot more. You can find a written version of this interview on escapecollective.com. But without any further preamble, let's hear from the reigning world and Olympic champion, Grace Brown. What have you been up to since your last race? I think it's been like a month since you finished up.
Yeah, just about. So I came back pretty soon afterwards, and I've just been sort of busy with like different events and trying to catch up with people, interviews, podcasts. Also getting started on stuff with the Cyclists Alliance. So quite a lot of like early morning or evening meetings.
Joys of working with people in Europe from Australia, hey?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just been a bit of a mix of stuff and working out life from here on out.
Speaking of Europe, tell me about what it was like packing up in Italy. I assume you guys aren't, or you haven't got a place over there anymore. You've left that behind now?
Yeah, I've always just been renting like furnished apartments. So thankfully I didn't have, any furniture or like big things that I had to deal with. But yeah, it's still quite a painful job to to pack up years of stuff. Lots of cycling kit. Like I think I had 3 suitcases full of cycling kit that I shipped back to Australia. It's yet to arrive, so I haven't had to like deal with it on the other end yet. But hopefully I can find some juniors or the likes to hand those off to. But yeah, it's sort of a weird process. I don't know, like leaving a place that you've spent a long, a lot of the last decade of my life in. My few last training rides, just, you think these are roads that you travel so regularly, and to realize that you're probably doing them for the last time is a bit weird. Yeah, but there's nothing that really prepares you for saying goodbye. Like you always come to the crunch point where you can't sort of, yeah, eke it out anymore.
Good to be back in Melbourne though, with friends, family, and obviously Elliot around.
Yeah, yeah, super nice to be back home and yeah, back with Elliot, probably number one, and then yeah, having my immediate family around. My brothers just had like actually uh not even a week after I got back, him and his partner had their first child. So that's like the first of the next generation in our family. So it's like a really, yeah, sort of exciting um yeah, phase, I think, for the family. We're all yeah, sort of getting around that and got a WhatsApp group that's just like baby pictures constantly now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, as far as final seasons go, like I know you, I mean, it seemed pretty much perfect. I know you had that tough time through the classics and stuff like that, but when you look at, obviously Liège and then the Olympics and Worlds and winning your first and only race in Rainbows, have you had a chance to kind of step back and process what you're able to achieve this season?
I think yeah, now I'm starting to process it a little bit more, but also it's this yeah, sort of weird thing that even also like the being out of that environment, it becomes even more strange that I did that. Like now that I'm just, hanging out with people in Melbourne who don't ride bikes for a living. Um, yeah, to think that yeah, I was over there racing and competing and winning like the biggest races in the world, seems super bizarre. Um, and a bit like, did I really do that? Yeah, but also at the time, it was just like how, like this is what I'm going after. This like like I was really mentally in there. It's not like anything happened by accident, but it just felt like what I was putting my mind to was just working out, which is not something that happens very often in life, I don't think.
Cycling's a really complex sport, and there's never just one ingredient that makes for success in cycling. But do you have a sense of some of the things or some of the factors that went right to help you have such a good final season and tick off all those big goals that you had?
Um, yeah, I think like it was, yeah, a big combination of a lot of things. Um, for instance, like the Olympics specifically was a long-term goal between me, Oz Cycling, and also FTJ, came along on that journey, which I think was key because a lot of trade teams aren't super interested in helping, um, yeah, facilitate those sorts of goals. So, like everyone was looking at what I needed to do to win that race. Um, and yeah, I think I went all in more than I normally would in a season. Like this was the first season that I really focused on like consistent gym work. Well, in most years I come back to Australia in the middle of the year. I didn't come back. Yeah, like I quite enjoy red wine, but in the like month leading up to the Olympics, I didn't drink, which is like not something that I would usually, you know, take out of my routine for a goal, which is, yeah, I don't know. So there's just like little things that, maybe don't seem that big, but when you add them all together, I guess the percentages add up. And but despite those like sort of habit or physical changes that I made, I think they all signify how mentally focused I was on a goal. Um, that I was willing to make changes. I think the Liège win was sort of different. That was just like I felt amazing, and I was able to convince the team to let me race how I wanted to race, despite not having a good season up until then. And yeah, I guess I'm really lucky to have had like a super good relationship within the team that they respected me and listened to me when I said that I could go after something.
When you look back at your career as a whole, do you get a sense that you managed to achieve everything that you wanted to? Because it feels like you ticked off just about all the big ones that you would have been aiming for. Or is it there's some that kind of you missed out on or that slipped through the cracks?
I'm definitely not, finishing wanting for more, but I think there was, particularly when I started to get results in Europe, like I really thought that I could go after more of the classics races. Um, yeah, like I dreamt of winning Flanders or Roubaix. I feel like Roubaix, like there were years where I could have got it. This year didn't go like very well at that race, but um yeah, Flanders was becoming more and more out of reach just because I wasn't the same rider anymore. Um and I had to accept that I wasn't the rider that could do it. Um yeah. So yeah, there's dreams, but there's also reality.
From a purely Australian point of view, what about the Aussie Nationals? I know it's not the biggest thing on the calendar, but
Yeah.
I think they would love to have won a green and gold at some point.
Yes. Um, yeah, to be like obviously I was able to wear it in the time trial, but um to do majority of the races in the season wearing green and gold, I think would have been a real privilege. And just to have on my cycling resume that I've been the best in Australia. But yeah, it would have been really nice to win that. And I felt like I was so close on a number of occasions. But yep, that it happens like that.
What are you most proud of throughout your time as a cyclist, whether it be results or something else?
Um, I think particularly this year, something that made me really proud was just the reaction from like my teammates, staff, fans, everyone, um, in some of those moments, like when I announced that I was retiring, or yeah, sort of I don't know, different public moments. The reactions from those people showed that like I'd had an impact, personally, and that yeah, I think especially within my team, like that they saw me as like a really good, caring person, and that that's what they felt was the bigger loss rather than me as a bike rider. Like that made me proud to be valued as a human.
Yeah, that was down to what do you think you offered in that regard off the bike?
I think I went out of my way to look out for my teammates and to, make sure that the team was working as a unit off the bike, and yeah, that my teammates felt seen and heard. And also for the staff, like just letting them know that I appreciated them. Um, yeah, I don't know, it goes a long way.
I mean, aside from all your amazing results this year, I think one of the things that stood out watching from afar was also the role you played when you weren't chasing your own results. So I'm thinking of the Welter in particular and the Tour when you're racing for Avita. Some of the rides you put in there were just incredible. Do you look back on that stuff with a sense of pride too, that when you weren't chasing your own results, you could play that role of super domestique or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I think like especially the Vuelta like was really like one of the most enjoyable races of my year. Helping Evita, like especially that stage that she won, like yeah, just like listening on the radio as I was climbing, I was so excited to hear what was unfolding up the road, and then like the pride I felt for her achieving that, and like yeah, feeling like I'd contributed as well was really probably more emotional than like my own victories.
Yeah, that's so cool. What have you learnt about yourself over the last, what, 7, 8 years you've been a pro? 2018, 2019. Yeah, so 6, 7 years. What have you learnt about yourself in that time?
Whew. Uh, yeah, it's interesting, like trying to think back what type of person was I when I started and how have I changed. Um,
Well, I mean, it's a tough question. I guess I think about
yeah.
the perspective of like from the outside, we look at you as bike riders that are very good at what you do, and you go from Australia and you go to Europe, and we watch you race bikes and stuff like that. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more challenging than that, and you're uprooting your life and being away from loved ones and all that kind of stuff, and you have to grow a lot as a person as well as a cyclist during that time. And I'm always curious about what that's like and how that changes you as a person through that process.
Yeah, I think like I've definitely learned to overcome, or not necessarily overcome, but live through hard times. Um, and knowing that like sometimes you just have to keep like pushing through the shit, and eventually it clears, like, and then all the pushing has been worth it. And it's something that I've reminded myself in this like retirement journey and this year, like having all these great results. Like you sort of get a bit wrapped up in the high sometimes, but you have to also remind yourself of the really tough parts, that like when you were hating it, and starting a race felt like something really mentally challenging. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of growth that comes from that. I've also learned that, like, I always thought that I was a really competitive person, but I've learned that I'm not actually that interested in beating other people. I just want to like get the best out of myself. And I think that's the reason why I've been able to retire this year, because I really reached like my top potential, and winning again doesn't seem like it will bring me much satisfaction.
It just happens to be that your best is better than anybody else's best, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but like I never really got that disappointed when I didn't win, as long as I'd done my best. Like the only times in races that I was frustrated with myself was when I wasn't racing at my best
Mm.
for whatever reason, whether it was physically or mentally. And then I'd be down on my performance. But like, the races where I'd gone out and done like a late attack and then got caught, like I love doing that. And I always finished with a smile when it was like that. But yeah, if I just, you know, couldn't put myself in the right position to be in the race or something like that that's just frustrating, then I didn't enjoy it.
Just on the being away from home stuff, do you feel like it got easier over the years being away from friends and family? Did you get into a bit of a rhythm with it, or did it just stay pretty hard and pretty miserable that whole time?
I think leaving got harder,
Yeah.
but being away, yeah, I got into a routine with it. And like Elliot and I had like quite a strict policy about making time every single day to speak to each other, even if it was only 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I think that was really important, like just not to lose that and get into a bad habit of not speaking to each other. And also coming back got easier. Like the first couple of times I went away, then coming back into and working out how to be back in Australia and in my home environment here was hard. But yeah, we also found a way to do that. And just like now I just come home and like we know how to be together. But yeah, definitely like when I left for Europe at the start of this year. I was like, I don't want to have to do this again. Like I just, the weeks leading up to it, I just had dread.
Tell me about the Cyclist Alliance gig. How did that all come about?
Yeah, it was sort of a bit serendipitous, I guess. Yeah, I just saw an email from the Cyclist Alliance saying that they were specifically looking for president and vice president of the board. And I thought, well, yeah, I thought in my head, like, I don't really have experience to be either of those roles, but I would quite like to be on the board. So I just sent my CV and expression of interest through. And yeah, basically, Iris came straight back to me saying she was very excited that I'd put in an application and that she thought I would be perfect president to replace her. And I was like, "Ooh, okay." But yeah, when she explained it, it made sense. She's stepping away because, yeah, she's been in it for so long. It's been a huge, huge job for her to get it to this point. And she has her own brand and like other work that now she wants to focus on. And also she feels like she's been out of the peloton for so many years that she's no longer as in touch with the needs of the riders. So she thought it was important to have like a recent rider in the role and also someone with, yeah, I don't know, a good reputation and a good, like someone that the cycling world recognizes basically and respects. So, yeah, I guess that's why they saw me as a good candidate for the role. For me personally, the role was really attractive because I guess in retiring from the sport, my fear was that I would lose my connection with it and my connection with the riders, and also just being part of the growth and like positive movement of women's cycling in the past. Yeah, during my whole career, like to step out of that and not be part of that like positive change anymore. I was sad about leaving it. And yeah, now with the role, like I'm in there, like still involved. So yeah, and in a positive way. So that's really cool, I think.
And what would that look like for you? Will you do the job basically from Australia? Will you head over to Europe at all for it? Is it a full-time thing? How does that all work?
It's a voluntary role, but the time commitment is like an open door, basically. It's probably not sustainable for me to do it as a full-time job for free. I need to, yeah, support myself in other ways as well. I'll mainly do it from Australia, but I hope that I can come back over to Europe in the summer around the Tour de France Femme at least to be a little bit more present. But yeah, there's other staff on the ground. I mean, most of the team is remote. All the meetings are online, so it's fine in that regard. It would be better if I was in Europe and could physically go to a few more things, but yeah, I think we can make it work like this.
Do you have a sense of what you might do to earn some money now that you've stopped cycling and this job isn't paying?
A few things. I'm gathering random jobs. Um, yeah, I've got quite a few sort of event and speaking jobs lined up. I'll be at Tour Down Under and Cadel Evans in January. And yeah, also speaking with SBS about getting onto commentary. So you might be lucky enough to hear my dulcet tones of a night.
So at TDU and Cadell's race, will that be commentary as well, or kind of venue announcing stuff?
Yeah, a bit of a mix. I don't think I'll be on the race commentary, but maybe, yeah, more like start line, finish line stuff there. But yeah, it'll be a bit of a mix. I think they want me doing something different every day. So
So you haven't left cycling behind.
no, and I don't want to leave cycling behind. Like it's an awesome sport, and yeah, a lot of my community is in cycling, so you'll see me around.
You've been right since you got back?
I did like get out quite a few times in the first week that I was back, and now it's just sort of fallen off a cliff a bit. Yeah, and I'm finding it more time efficient to go for a run.
Oh,
But
come back.
yeah, not
And
approved so much by my Strava followers.
do you have a sense of the sort of riding that you'll do going forward? Do you think you'll keep riding and have fun with it? You'll do some events or just see how you go?
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, my main aim for riding is just to enjoy it, like to go out with Elliot and friends. And yeah, I'll do a few events, but not like yeah, I'm not gonna race because I don't really like racing when I'm not at a good level. So yeah, we'll just have fun with it, but maybe do a bit more off-road stuff and enjoy it and do some challenges that aren't like, yeah, quite the same as beating people.
Yeah. Are you allowed to wear your rainbow stripes when you're on your road bike, or do you have to be on a TT bike to do that?
Yeah, technically, when I'm training on my TT bike is when I should be wearing the rainbow stripes. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of people have been telling me that I should just wear them anyway, but I feel awkward about it.
Or you think if you ride down beach road, someone's going to come up and say, "Oh, you shouldn't be wearing those."
Yeah, probably like, you're an imposter.
Thanks so much for listening. And a big thank you too to Grace Brown for taking the time to have a chat. We'll be back next week with another one of these special off-season interview episodes. But until then, thanks for listening to Wheel Talk.